Have you ever played a game so profound that it completely transformed the way you look at the medium? A game that made you feel things, long buried emotions and thoughts that could shape how you see the world differently. A game that made you a different person on the way out to when you went in. Well, today I'm going to talk about a game that fits perfectly into that category. A game that, in my opinion, competes with the highest forms of literature and art in human history, such as Animal Farm and Twin Peaks. Why I believe it is the single most profound video game ever made. That game is Signalis. I can count on one hand the amount of video games that changed my core philosophical makeup. Silent Hill, Soma, Mother 3, Dark Souls, Amarillo's Butt Slapper, and one funny little game starring two lesbian robots stuck in an endless time loop to keep a promise. Whatever could that game be? From that description, if you haven't already played or heard of Signalis, you might be thinking, how can a game that sounds so silly be so artistically inclined? But don't worry, I can assure you, do not judge a book by its cover, or in this case, a game by its fanbase. I mean, think about it, how many times have you dismissed a piece of media just because of one image or interaction, only to go back and realize just how much you missed out? This game explores themes that few others dare to touch, themes that will likely make your head explode like a Taco Bell toilet stall if you think about them too hard. But that won't be hard at all to avoid, since we here at the Elysium Giga Gaming Gooners United Front have brains the size of peanuts and cannot comprehend anything more than the simple nursery rhymes our lizard overlords serve us every day via the YouTube algorithm. Rose Engine, the absurdly talented two-person team that developed Signalis, comprised of Yuri Stern and Barbara Whitman, originally started development for the game in 2014, their first game ever. In Hamburg, Germany, they set out to make something that had never been done before. And in a thriving indie game landscape with releases such as Stardew Valley in 2016 and Hollow Knight in 2017, the pair were not intimidated and instead knew that what they brought to the table could not only provide them with a massive amount of success, but also the world with a piece of art that could change how games are perceived forever. And with all the tools at their disposal that modern game development offered them, they worked for 8 long years to bring to fruition not just one of the greatest indie games ever made, but one of the greatest games of all time. In late October of 2022, the game was finally released to overwhelmingly positive critical reception from reviewers and gamers alike, being discussed as a potential Game of the Year candidate, although everyone knew that Elden Ring would snuff out its flame, no pun intended, in that race due to its popularity. It did however break records with the number of other awards it received, such as Horror Game of the Year award for 2 consecutive years in a row, and the New York Game Awards Best Hidden Gem. People were starting to take note of this funny little anime game that they kept seeing crop up in their feed again and again. A game with a fanbase so rabid that they just had to check it out. However, what they didn't realize is just how deep the rabbit hole they are about to go down goes. Now, there's been a lot of talk in this video so far about profoundness, and yet the only thing that's come out of my mouth so far, barring the contextual setup for the game, is a whole slew of verbal diarrhea and unfunny jokes. So get to the good stuff already, I hear you all screaming. Yeah, we're getting there, you can keep your rotten tomatoes to yourself. To start with, my main philosophical hypothesis about this game after 100%ing it and playing it quite a lot is something that was sparked by something the recently released Silent Hill F-Dev said, that they wanted you to find the beauty in terror, or rather in my own words, the beauty in horror and suffering. And no, not in the BDSM kind of way. Which is a theme Signalis, a game inspired directly by Silent Hill, echoes pretty significantly. The entire game's narrative revolves around a couple, a feminine machine aka Replica, and a female human, Elster and Ariane, who only have each other in their most trying times. Times that would prove to be their lost. After being sent to space in one of their government's space programs in a ship known as the Penrose, they began to develop feelings for each other, and without anywhere else to turn, they became each other's everything. Playing music for each other, cooking for each other, cleaning for each other, and doing you know what else with each other. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, just hang on a minute. The game begins approximately 3,000 plus cycles or many dozen years after the Penrose was first launched, and you find yourself picking up the controller through the eyes of Elster. The ship is decaying and you soon notice something is very, very wrong. Not with the ship, but with you. Since you and I don't have all day, to cut a short story short, Ariane has powers known in universe as bioresonance. Powers that allow her to warp and control the time and space around her, which Elster is unfortunately caught inside of. This is what is wrong with her, she's already long gone. This essentially means the entire game takes place inside of Ariane's mind, which is once again pretty similar to the setup of the first Silent Hill game with Alessa. Due to Ariane's love for Elster and a promise they made before the original Elster died, that was for Elster to kill Ariane and end her suffering, as she was now a vegetative, irradiated, living corpse due to the Penrose breaking down, Ariane's thoughts and wants came into play in quite a Freudian manner. She keeps Elster in a permanent cycle of death and rebirth until she achieves her promise and reunites them both in what they hope to be the afterlife. The problem with this, however, is that Ariane's sickness from the radiation etc. has also spread inside of her mind, meaning that Elster has to fight unspeakable horrors inside of these endless cycles, essentially cementing her inside of her very own kind of hell. Now you might be seeing some juxtaposition between the absolute horror of what has unfolded to Elster and Ariane, and the beauty of what they once had. The fate worse than death they have both endured bleeding over into their very own hell, but also the romance they once shared and the bond that brought them together in a way that makes all the suffering worth it in the end. Or does it? Mirroring life's own roller coaster of ups and downs, Signalis makes players question their own meaning and what drives them to overcome all the suffering. The quote, "At first art imitates life, then life imitates art," from Fyodor Dostoevsky perfectly encapsulates this, as while Elster and Ariane's situation is at the extremest levels of extreme, almost everyone can still relate to the situation of pain and failed romance brought to ruin by external circumstances outside of their control. And yet failure can still be beautiful. Suffering can still be beautiful. Horror can still be beautiful, as without these, who are we really? Which leads me on to one of the primary talking points of the community of the game, the Ship of Theseus. One of the main themes in Signalis is identity, as Elster is not the only replica you meet along the journey of Ariane's mind. Many others like Adler, Falk, Bio, and more are encountered along the way, and some of them play a much bigger role in dissecting the game than others. The Ship of Theseus is a philosophical paradox that asks the question, if you replace every part of you over time with different parts, different arms, different legs, a different face, are you still who you were when you started? Every person has a different answer to this question, but we all experience it, sometimes without even realizing. Throughout our lifetime, our body is constantly replacing cells, our mind constantly replacing thoughts, and our game library constantly replacing old games with new ones we'll never play every Steam cell. And at the end of our lives, we are a completely different person to the one that was born, shaped by our world and pushed by our biology into all kinds of different directions. Just like Elster was pushed to become someone else by the end of the game, swapping out her parts with those of dead units just to keep her promise. And in that light, what was really the point of the entire hellish journey she made? To keep a promise to a stranger? To do the right thing at her own expense? What even is the right thing? These are the questions Signalis makes its players ponder after finishing and fully digesting the game, about their own lives and perhaps about other media they may have seen. Now we can't have a Signalis video without mentioning the King in Yellow, a constant reoccurring plot point across the story. The main thing you need to know is that anyone who reads the book is supposed to be driven insane, essentially making it a potential cognito hazard. There are a few different interpretations of the King in Yellow, one of which being a play which is clearly referenced in Signalis when Adler, the facility administrator of 23 Sierpinski, which is one of the many places of Ariane's past that Elster has to trudge through, says this:
"I've been here so many times, but I've never returned."
He also quotes characters from the play itself with lines like "I wear no mask," which is a line from the Pallid Mask, also known as the Stranger in Act 1 Scene 2, further cementing the theory that the entire game is just one big play. This shows that Adler is clearly aware of being stuck inside of a never-ending time loop, a mere pawn in Ariane's mind meant to challenge Elster and help her overcome the trials and tribulations she needs to, so that she can keep her promise. You might be thinking, how on earth does this relate to the King in Yellow or even the interpretation of it being a play? Don't worry, I got you, boo. The running theory is that perhaps the entirety of Signalis is a play, set up by Ariane, and everyone in it is just an actor playing their part. It's no secret that the King in Yellow also has ties to bioresonance, hence why it has 3 stars on it later on in the game that are usually linked to that characteristic, as well as, it just being a book that can mold the mind in any way it sees fit, destroy it, build it up again, or even send it into a Groundhog style time loop. There are many real-world philosophical talking points that this can link to, such as the simulation theory, and now you might be understanding why I call Signalis the most profound game ever made. It's not really just a game, it's a piece of art that makes you think about all kinds of existential points that challenge the status quo of games just being a time-wasting mechanism that people use to relax, not to learn and grow. There's one final thing I'd like to talk about though, and that is how Signalis has predicted a lot of things about our modern 2025 and beyond world, such as media like Serial Experiments Lane did back in 1998. Everyone and their mother knows that we are living through one of the most changeable periods our world has ever gone through. Every other week, new advancements are made in the fields of AI, technology, and beyond, and yet our world is crumbling faster than it ever has before. We may even be approaching the end of capitalism as we know it, or even the world at large, as intercontinental relations plummet and new wars are waged every year. In the Signalis universe, there is one ruler of all known locations we visit, the Yusan Nation, which is a highly technologized, totalitarian communist regime. They manufacture all kinds of machinery, including the robots we see throughout the game, and yes, even Elster units, and achieve their goals with an iron fist. They are arguably even the main antagonist of Signalis, as they are the ones who sent Elster and Ariane out into space on the doomed Penrose expedition that ends in certain tragedy.
Why are you giving me a history lesson? Just get on with the game, goddammit!
Well, the reason I've saved this point for last is because I think it's the most important warning that games like Signalis and others have tried to offer us as a species, and yet no one listens. That's right, I reeled you in with cute anime waifu game just to lecture you about the horrors of the world as we know it. Our Western societies are showing the early signs of what fictional civilizations like the Yusan Nation became through things like highly advanced AI, totalitarianism, mass censorship, and more. And if we keep heading in this direction, our species will almost certainly collapse. Perhaps being taken over by AI in some system shock type doomsday scenario, or perhaps in a much slower, more gradual sickness that spreads by an ethos to everyone who reads it. And hey, if you like that video, why not subscribe for more, or check this one out about the game that changed my brain forever.